Hello and welcome to Meet the Eatmons Endangered Species Podcast, where we inspire, uplift, and spotlight families and individuals who are doing something special in today's world. So we're your hosts, Curtis and Spring Eatman, and we're really excited for you to be here today. So
Yes,
what are
we
we
are.
talking about?
Well, they say that, love can actually survive anything.
Yes.
So the real question is, can FaceTime, miles, a real distance, is it enough, to be able to overcome that? So today we're going to talk about the real truth. Is long distance relationships, can they work, or are they just a breakup in disguise?
Can they work, or is it just a breakup in disguise?
We're going to find out right now. So I have a couple questions for you. Ready?
Okay.
So let's get right into it. So can a long distance relationship actually survive, or is it doomed from the start?
I think that that's a tough question because
Right.
I think that it definitely can survive. And you see lots and lots of examples where people start off long distance and it works well. They always say, the absence makes the heart grow fonder.
I've heard that before.
Today's world with, being able to use FaceTime and, phone calls and all the different things.
Right.
Life 360 app. You always know where they are.
Really, right? And little stalkers, right? That's funny.
There's a lot of things that can help you to bring your spouse closer, but I do think that it's a lot more challenging. I think that you have to have a crazy level of commitment from both people to be able to really make that work and to not slip up, have issues. You have to really be in love, really be committed for the long haul to make that work. And I think you also have to be committed to visiting each other. Because I think it's just really about the time that you are able to spend together. So if it's one of those situations where, we are long distance, but we're able to see each other every 3 to 4 weeks,
Right.
that could work. But if it's just, even once a quarter or something, it's like,
there has to be something.
But if there's nothing, that could be very, very hard. And it has to be a very committed couple for that to work.
I agree. I mean, I'm looking at some research, on this, and it talks about success rate. It says studies show long distance relationships have a 58% success rate.
That's pretty
Interesting,
good.
right?
It's like almost the same as regular couples, right?
Yeah, basically, right. And it also talks about marriage and commitment stats that 10% of all marriages started as a long distance relationship, proving that again some can survive and thrive as well. So, interesting, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you probably have some real life examples. What's on your mind about that?
Yeah, so I mean, when I think about long distance, I think about your sister and my brother-in-law.
That's a good one.
So they were a good one. They met in college. She was from California. He was from Georgia.
Yep.
She was going to school in Georgia. And funny enough, he was in the military. He ended up getting stationed in California. Mm-hmm. So she was there with his family. He was with our family in California. And then they would come together. But I think them being so young, what really strengthened that relationship probably had a lot to do with the fact that they were around each other's family.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Yeah.
That helped a lot. So it wasn't like, he's in California, just who knows what. It was a lot of dinners with us as a family. She was going and spending a lot of time with his family.
True.
And so I think that probably strengthened their bond. You also see a lot of military spouses, right?
Yeah.
Which they fall in that category as well once he ended up deploying. You see that a lot where couples end up by force of job or position that they have to be separated for long periods of time. But I think a lot of those relationships are really committed as well. A lot of these are families. They're already married or they're moving toward marriage for that to be able to work out. And so you see that work in a lot of cases. There's some cases that it doesn't. It breaks them. But that speaks to, again, the strength of the relationship. And there's a few different celebrities. Now, I was looking at this, and I thought this was really interesting.
Okay.
So there's a few different celebrity couples that are happily married but live apart. So first one is Cheryl Lee Ralph and her husband, Senator Vincent J. Hughes. Now, they're very interesting because she always says that, it's meaningful. There's meaningful benefits to living separately. For them to have a long-term committed relationship. And so for them, she's kind of like, hey, we're both older. We're already set in our ways. We already kind of, have what works for us. And so like, why fix what's not broken? And it works for them. Another couple that was interesting to me with Gwyneth Paltrow and her husband Brad Falchuk.
Yeah.
So they also live separately. It took her a year in their marriage so they were married for a year before she moved into their home. And one that was the last one that's super interesting to me that I didn't even know about was Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian.
Really?
It's crazy because these two, like in the media, they cannot even get their hands off of each other.
Well, makes sense.
But
now.
maybe this is why. maybe this is why they can't stop sucking each other's faces off because they live apart.
Yeah.
So they live a block away. They live in the same neighborhood.
Interesting.
But for them, it was a difficult decision for them to figure out how to blend their families. Even though they just had a baby together in 2023, they still struggle with it because they both have older children.
Wow.
And their children had been living in those specific perspective houses like their whole lives, basically.
Right.
So they were having a hard time uprooting their children to actually blend. So what they do is they come together at his house every Sunday for dinner. And they come together as a family pretty often, and they'll spend the night at each other's house and things like that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting that there's a lot of couples that do it.
I'm just thinking, like, do they sneak out of each other's house too?
I know. I'll be right back. I'm going around the corner.
Hey, whatever works for you, whoever works for you.
I think it's a little different for them, though, because I'm sure they have full-blown staffs of people living in their house with them. Like stay over during the week nannies and things like that. That is like, hey, if I'm over around the corner, you'll be fine because you're not here by yourself.
Yeah.
And their kids are a little older, so I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's pretty interesting because do I think it could work? I mean, the question really is can you survive from it, or is it doomed from the start?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have the same core values when you're starting,
mm-hmm.
You have the same vision on what the end could look like for you guys, or when you do come together, then that gives you the longing that you're on a journey together.
Yes.
So I think that's what, I mean, even think about like individuals we work with, like even an individual on our staff, he comes to work every day, diligent and all those different things. And I see him, sometimes leave a couple meetings and go on the FaceTime. He's walking outside on FaceTime. I'm like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to my wife. She lives, they live their long distance relationship. Right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
But you can see like the longingness to be able to communicate with somebody, and they seem like they're very happy. So do I think it could work? 100%. I think it could work. But you got to be very clear, like you just mentioned, on boundaries, on principles, on values, and that kind of leads into the next one, which my next question is, what's the real key to making a long distance love work? Mm-hmm. All right, is it trust? Is it communication, or just an expiration date on it?
I think trust, communication, all of those things are super important. It's really a must because it's all you have when you don't have that physical. And so I think that having trust when you're miles and miles away from each other, there's just no other way. You have to trust them or you're going to go crazy. You're going to be thinking I need to pop up with a plane ticket. It's so funny. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Dubai Bling, but
no, I haven't.
Of course you have.
I definitely have not seen
It's so funny because one of the ladies, she's like obsessed with her husband.
Okay.
And he goes to India for a work trip, and she just is like, I hate it when he leaves. And all of a sudden she had him on Life 360, and he was like in a different location than normal.
Yeah.
She flies her and her friend to India to go and spy on him, and like, why are you here? What are you doing here?
That's so weird.
He was like, whoa.
That's a little much.
That's a little much.
That's
it's
a little much.
Just
call me.
It was entertaining.
Yeah.
It was entertaining. But you have to have trust. Deep trust, deep emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
Emotional intimacy.
Okay.
I think it is a good thing in the way that they have to rely on their communication skills. So I'm sure that these couples end up having a lot stronger communication skills
I can see that.
than the average couple because they have to literally talk about everything.
I guess that would be like if if your eyesight was impaired, you'll be more focused on your hearing. Your hearing would increase, right? And so I guess you would say that as well. If I can't touch you physically, then now I got to increase the communication. That makes a lot of sense. Actually.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, when you really think about it, they probably end up having like their statistics for longevity probably end up being higher for people who make it through the long distance part of their relationship, it probably ends up being a lot higher because it's not just built off of physical intimacy.
Right.
It's built on the emotional, like I can tap into that. I can make you feel a certain way with my words.
That's deep.
You know, like that's a big deal. It's not just like cohabitating.
Right.
Which a lot of relationships end up becoming, I think, in these days. But yeah, definitely, again, with FaceTime, Zoom, you know, all these different things, you can kind of bring your spouse into your space, you know, even without you being there. So it can almost feel like you're having little mini date nights every day and tapping in, touching in with each other.
You got something to look forward to because you know you can't just go and touch them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's interesting because I see right here on some research we looked up as well on this conversation, or at least this topic, and talks about trust issues break it faster. So if you don't have the right trust and you do have issues with the trust because you didn't deeply, you know, have that conversation up front or created that, it says 40% of long distance relationships fail due to trust issues or lack of physical intimacy.
And I can see that. That's why I'm saying there would have to be a plan for you to fly back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
Because physical intimacy is just something that people need. People need to be able to have a hug and, you know, feel a touch, you know. And so I think if that's why I said if they get past that part where they were in long distance, then they probably have a higher percentage. But I think it just has to be tough because you have to really be on the same page and have a ton of self-control.
Discipline is high. It's interesting you said that because I was on Instagram and I saw some pop up with Stephen A. Smith, right? ESPN reporter. And he said it was reported the reason why he cannot be married. And he says he works 330 out of 365 days out the year. And he says he's on the road out of 200 plus days out the year. So he said there's no way I was going to ever be faithful. Isn't that crazy?
I think that's probably true for a lot of these guys because not only are they, you know, on the road, not with their spouse consistently, but they're also famous.
That's it.
You know, so it's like, you know, that women are after them, people are after them, people know they're wealthy, all these different things. But I will say, like, I wasn't a huge believer in the fact that, like, someone that is an NBA player or, like, a, you know, superstar in some kind of sport or TV or film, that they could be super faithful because of that kind of a schedule. But I will say that I have seen it work. You know, we have some friends that the husband, he plays professional sports, and he is probably one of the most committed people that I like.
Family, for
their
sure.
family, their dynamic is so beautiful, and you could tell that. But they also make an effort to be with him when he's training, to be, you know, go to games, fly in and out. On his days off, he flies home a lot. And they just have such a beautiful family dynamic. And watching him, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is about his wife. Like, there's just no, like, he's about his family.
It's
so great. It restored my faith to see that. So it just depends on the person, really. It depends on the couple. It depends on the character of the people. It depends on the strength of the relationship. Because these two, they've been together since they were in high school. So they are like, they're rooted with each other.
Before that started happening.
They were rooted before the fame and all the things happened. So, you know, I think that they were already so committed that by the time that came, it was like...
You can't shake it. It's a strong foundation.
Exactly. And that's the point.
That's the point.
You have to have a strong foundation for this to work. You know, but I think a lot of people in the celebrity world end up in this situation of long distance relationships.
That's pretty
because
normal.
They're filming over here for a period of time. Even if they live in the same house, they end up really still having a long distance relationship because one has to leave for this or that. You know, one of my sisters, she's a showrunner and she does film and writing and all the things. And so she does have to fly out of town a lot for months at a time to shoot. And it's one of those things that it's just like, a lot of times the family will come along or, you know, you just have to have a plan. You just have to have a plan.
If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail.
Yes.
It's really that simple, right?
That's what it is.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. So, I mean, you just said it. Trust is the foundation. And without it, the whole thing's going to crumble anyways because there is no amount of FaceTimes or I don't care what frequent flyer miles you got going on unless you have some real trust involved.
That's 100%.
Right? Because otherwise you're going to be chasing everybody on Life 360 the whole day.
Yeah.
Don't
'cause,
recommend
I
it.
get tired just when you're gone for like an hour. I'm like, no, I'm kidding.
She's not, though.
No,
She's not
our
kidding.
kids, though, they are literal stalkers. Our kids are stalkers on Life 360. They're like, what are you doing over here? Where are you at?
I came home last. It's so funny because you were in Napa, right? And I had a couple different workshops we were doing for the community. I come back home, right? And I before I go back home, I'm at the table at Korean barbecue, right, with some of the partners. We're having a conversation. We're talking. I said, I bet you anything, when I go home, my daughter's gonna say, "Why didn't you bring me Korean barbecue?" Like, that's how you feel? That's how you feel? You can just go somewhere else without me? All right? I've been watching. And so I go home. I see she's on the couch. I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? She's all good. She says, so, how was Korean barbecue? I said, I knew it. I knew you was watching me. I felt the eyes on me, right?
These kids are stalkers.
It's hilarious, right? She's
stage 5 clingers for real.
for real, man. You gotta love it, though. You
Gotta love it for sure.
For real. So let's go to our last question is, do long-distance relationships build stronger bonds, okay? Or do they just delay the inevitable breakup?
Yeah, I think, like we said, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Okay.
Sometimes that can help a couple. It can help build that stronger bond, and it can help them to, miss each other and not fall into that rut situation.
Yeah.
And so then they probably cherish the time that they have together a lot more. So they probably don't spend it nitpicking or arguing about stupid things. They probably are just like so grateful for the time that they have together.
Okay.
And I think that it's definitely not for everyone. I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think I would be able to do it. I'm just way too much of a, like,
Stage 5 clinger.
yeah, I guess our kids get it from somewhere.
I know Nova walks in. Our 3-year-old, right? She cannot go literally 30 seconds without giving you a hug and saying she loves you.
Yes.
I'm
I'm
like-
a super
Yeah.
affectionate person. Very, like, touchy-feely. Have to, like, hold your hand, hug, something.
Yeah.
Like, so that would be really difficult for me and for my personality. Not that I feel like I would do anything, but it's just like I would have a hard time, and I would probably feel like depressed or something in my relationship if I felt like I wasn't able to be with you super often, like a month at a time, or here or there. That, I mean, is doable. But people who literally live in different states for like years, and that I just know myself, I wouldn't be able to do it. What do you think?
You was tripping about going, you went on a women's trip
know.
for
I
48
know.
hours.
I literally had anxiety before I left. I was like, oh my God, I'm traveling without you. What is happening?
Yeah, I got my little baby. All right. So what was your question? I'm sorry. I got caught up in what we were talking about.
I said, so what are your thoughts? So do long distance relationships build stronger bonds or not?
I believe it can, 100%. I think if a couple is going through an issue where they don't feel like their bond is tight enough, if they don't sit down and have that conversation on what they can do to strengthen it, sometimes it's good to go away for a little bit, so they become like, I really do miss you. And let that, like, you kind of already said it. I think that can also be, because sometimes when you're around each other too much, you start taking each other for granted.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why we kind of said, like, communication probably increases, because I'm around you so much, I don't even have to communicate with you. I can be around you, but are we really connecting?
Right.
And that's why I think those that have long distance relationships, they do have on those that sometimes are together most of the time. They are forced to connect.
Yes.
Not just communicate.
Yes.
Where we can be in the same room and communicate and not really connect.
Right.
Right? Emotionally, anything along those lines. So they do have that. So if you can do both and you're in the same room, you definitely have an advantage. But if you even look at some of the studies right here, to your point, infidelity factor, because that's the biggest thing. It says study shows that 24% of long distance couples experience cheating.
Wow.
Compared to only 16% of regular couples.
Wow.
So there's
That's
definitely something to
crazy.
think about on that aspect,
Yeah.
And it goes back to the previous point, which is trust, obviously connection, not just communication, and being clear on, like, what is the end goal for us ultimately. I think if you can have a conversation about what the end goal is, you can push each other along on the journey just when one is going down. Like, no, remember, this is where we're going together. We only got 365 more days before we see each other. You could have a countdown or something you long for, So I think that can definitely help. But again, like you said, it's not for everybody. I don't necessarily think it was for us. That's why we haven't done it, right? And it doesn't look like we'll ever will, But for those that are watching and you are in that situation, hopefully some of these tips are able to help you become obviously stronger in your relationship.
Do date nights, even on Zoom, on whatever you got to do. Send your spouse flowers or gifts just out of nowhere, out of the blue, so that they know that you're thinking of them.
That's good.
Write a love letter and mail it to them. There's just little things I think that would...
Your creativeness has to definitely increase.
Yes, to make it feel like your presence is there even when you're not present.
That's good. That's points right there. So all the men, even though you might be in the same house, still act like you're long distance for some of that stuff. I think you get some points.
Yes. Hints. No.
Oh. Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. You're so good at that. You're always bringing me a card.
Oh, whatever. Don't have to make me feel good now. We're good now.
No.
All right, perfect. So, and what's your closing remarks?
All right. Well, I would just say that, everything is not some shiny fairy tale. Everybody's life doesn't look the exact same. Every relationship doesn't look the same. And that's okay. Just as long as you two are on the same page, you know what you're looking for, you know what your end goal is, and you're committed to each other and to growing that love, then Godspeed.
I love it. I mean, let us know what you think. You might have a different perspective. Can, again, a long-distance relationship really work in your eyes? Do you have some points that maybe we didn't get to bring up? We would love to hear from you in the comments as well. I love it.
All right. Well, as we're wrapping up today, guys, we hope that you enjoyed this topic today. And like he said, we're interested to hear your thoughts as well. Have you ever been in a long-distance relationship? Is there anything that we missed? Let us know in the comments. But as we wrap up again, guys, we are so excited for you to be with us. And as you are looking for what is special and endangered inside of you, just remember that it's important for you to bring that out of yourself, because it's not just important that you have survival, but it's vital. So we're excited for you to join us again next time. Have a blessed day, guys.